Hello, all. Welcome to the lecture series on soft skills and interpersonal skills. And today we will be dealing with the second topic from the fourth unit, that is your descriptive writing. Okay. So in the previous lecture session, we finished expository writing, and as I told you, that expository writing is a kind of an explanatory writing which is rooted in facts and evidences and statistics, and which is basically deeply rooted in reality, right? That's what I told. Now, today we will be dealing with another kind of writing, that is descriptive writing. Okay. Now, what is descriptive writing? So, as the term suggests, descriptive writing is a kind of a writing which describes something. Okay. Descriptive writing describes something. Now, that can be a concrete object. Okay. That can be an event, that can be, you know, that can be a memory from your past. So that can be anything. And descriptive writing can be both factual as well as fictional. What does it mean? It means that descriptive writing gives you that room for imagination and creativity which was limited in your expository writing. Okay. So in descriptive writing, you have room for imagination and creativity. You can exercise your sense of imagination and creativity in expository writing, in descriptive writing, which you couldn't do in expository kind of a writing. Okay. Now let us see what descriptive writing basically deals with. So, descriptive writing is a style or technique of writing used by the writer to help the reader vividly visualize the story or situation using words, metaphors, adjectives, and other literary techniques. Okay. So, basically, what did we learn? We learned that it is a style or technique of writing where you use words to paint or to help the reader paint the situation or the object that you are talking about. So, with the help of your words, when you are describing the object, when you are describing the situation, when you are describing any event, when you are describing anything, the reader has to simultaneously be able to paint the exact image that you are putting out there with the help of words. Okay, so it is like a vivid painting made not through your paint brushes but with the help of your words. Okay, that is your descriptive writing. And paint such a in order to paint such a picture and in order to help the readers, you know paint such a picture in their mind, with the help of their imagination, you have to use the right kind of words, and those words should be beautifying your write up, because in descriptive writing, beautifying your write up is extremely important. Writing straight up will not help here completely. When you are using your imagination, when you are using your creativity, it means that you are using certain words in order to beautify your write up, so that when the reader reads it, he or she feels a sense of fulfillment that, oh my god, I read a thing of beauty today. Okay, so it should be very literary, is what I'm trying to say. Rather than being technical, it should be extremely literary, and it should actually help the readers, exercise their sense of imagination too. Okay. So it should not be the kind of writing that you do for your engineering degree, but it should be something very literary, very imaginative, very creative, and it should be very unique in its own way. Okay. So that is a descriptive writing. Now, there are certain techniques which you use to, you know, write your descriptive writing. Now, the first technique that we know is the five senses rule. So, during your kindergarten, of course, you have been taught, the first thing that you are taught in your science subject is the five sense organs that you have. So, what are the five sense organs? Eyes, nose, tongue, ears, skin, right? So, these are the five sense organs that you have. Now, when you are writing or when you are doing a descriptive writing, you have to hit all those five senses of the reader, either all of those five senses, or you have to hit any one of those five senses of the reader. Okay, so that the reader can get is able to relate, is able to imagine what it would feel like in reality. So when you are saying that, suppose you are talking about um suppose you are talking about, or suppose you are writing an adventure story, not an adventure story, suppose you are giving an anecdote about an adventure that you had, or an adventure that you want to experience, and you are talking about you're talking about one of your fantasies. Okay, now the fantasy, as we know, it is not rooted in reality. Fantasy and imagination are very different. Imagination still has got some realistic base, but fantasy doesn't have that. So suppose you are talking about of one of your fantasy adventures, where you want to basically explore one corner of the world, and you say that you are writing, suppose that I entered a cave, or we entered a cave, and suddenly our noses were hit by a pungent smell. So, from your understanding of chemistry in your first year, and your understanding of chemistry during your school days, you know what pungent smell is. So, when you are imagining what a pungent smell is, so when you are thinking of what a pungent smell is, immediately you can imagine what it would feel like to be in that position, right? So, what is a writer doing, or what are you doing as a writer? You are basically hitting the one of the sense organs of the reader, that is a sense of smell, which will help him, or which will facilitate him to imagine the situation further. Okay, so that is your five senses rule. Now comes removing apparent description. Now, what does removing apparent description means? So removing apparent description means that, of course, as a writer of a descriptive write up, you should definitely be including descriptions. The more the descriptions you have, the better your write up is. But you have to avoid using descriptions which are on the face, and descriptions which are pretty apparent, and something that we all know, and something that does not require you to impart knowledge to us. What are they? They are things like, you are not supposed to write things like the apple is red, the sky is blue, the leaves are green. We all know this. We all know this. We do not need you to tell us, or we do not need you to educate us that these are colored in this way. Okay? So you are not going to give us descriptions which are apparent, because if a writer gives us descriptions which are apparent, then it would actually uh, question the ability of the writer, in a way, because we would feel that the writer cannot use unique techniques to describe something, so he is using like on the fence descriptions, which would not create a good impression. Okay, so you should actually avoid using such on the face descriptions. Okay, if you have to describe an apple, if you have to describe a leaf, you describe it in a very alienating way, which you otherwise wouldn't which you otherwise wouldn't do in your daily life. So, one technique of literary writing is to defamiliarize the reader, or to alienate the reader. Talking about a mundane concept, but in a very alienating way, using words which you otherwise wouldn't use in your daily life. Okay, so this is the second technique. Um, now comes your third technique. So, third technique is extremely important, because you have to dress up your write up with figures of speech which are very literary, like simile, metaphor, personification, and all of these things. So all of these things you are required to use, okay, for your in order to dress up your write up, in order to beautify your write up. Okay, so because if you do not have these things, then the descriptive writing would look very bland, and we don't want that, because descriptive writing has to be very creative. So, in order to make it more creative, you have to use these figures of speech. And I'm sure you know about these figures of speech from your knowledge of English literature in school. And you also have this figure of speech, properly explained in your notes. All right. So, metaphor, simile, and personification. Then comes the fourth technique, which is the use of fresh slash new descriptive words. So you are going to use fresh and new descriptive words in order to describe your write up. Okay, words which have not been used by anybody else before. and phrases which have not been used by anybody else before, and it is completely your own doing and it is your own innovation. Okay, so these are the things that this is another technique that you need to keep in mind. Then comes the fifth technique, that is, if you want to improve writing good descriptive write up, then you have to keep reading descriptive writing samples. What are the descriptive writing samples? Of course, newspapers are not good examples because they are more expository. The samples are mainly short stories, novels, and essays by extremely famous writers. If you go through them, if you read novels, if you read short stories, novels, of course, you all of you might not want to have a knack for that, but short stories you can, because they can be read at one sitting. Okay, so short stories, essays, novels, all of these things, if you if you read, if you go through them properly, if you read them, if you internalize them, then definitely your descriptive writing ability will improve with time. Okay, so this is about descriptive writing. I'll meet you again in the next lecture with another kind of writing. Thank you so much for listening.